Hi everyone, it's Chris Shelley here. Um, we're going to be doing the iRacing Season 3 2021 release notes overview. I'm going to be mainly focusing on changes relating to oval and stock car racing, but I'll be uh, showing all of them in here and giving a few brief comments based on what I see. So starting with iRacing UI. Um, so I took a long break and I came back and the iRacing UI was a thing, and I personally I like it. I'm getting more used to using it, but it still feels a little weird getting used to because there's so many different ways to access different things that you're looking for. Whereas in the member site, it's just kind of all in a few bars, and you just click on them. But otherwise, I think there's some value to it just because you can access testing sessions just from looking at the series schedule. But yeah, so find sessions or content. Looks like they're making things easier to find sessions done. Each car and track info window now features a new tab and find sessions. I think that's pretty nice, just to save people time. Yeah, we're gonna move on to the next one. See interface images. Oh, this is showing custom paint schemes. That's cool. So you can look at what you have before you actually get in the session. Yeah, that's gonna be useful, especially people that actually probably have sponsorships and they want to make sure for like a league or if they're streaming, you want to make sure it's actually showing up properly. And car images are automatically loaded when iRacing UI launches. Cool. Series racing fixed an issue where the time of day setting was not being correctly preserved when creating test drive events or hosted sessions from a series event. Yeah, that's a good fix. Not much to say there. You want to get it to the right time of day for comparing lap times and feel how the car feels based on weather changes and time of day changes. Team racing, y'all can look at that if you want. I don't do any team racing, so hosted racing. For open practice only events, multiple setups may now be selected for use. Allows users to select both qualify and race setups for practicing. That's good, I think. Concerning available hosted sessions to achieve no results now incorrectly displays the warning no data. Okay, but yeah, this is good. I mean, I haven't done any hosted racing in a while, but I see a lot of people just use it hosting events probably for their teams just to practice. Yeah, it seems good. Paint shop. Driver heads with ponytails have been updated. Ryko logo updated. M Crown P430. Okay. And then general issue. New users could load into an empty user interface. Yeah, that would be not great. All right, member site. This has nothing to do with actual. I'll just breeze through this. So load some bug fixes here. New forums. All right, now we're getting into the simulation. This is the main part. To actually fix the gameplay. So connectivity. Improving the reporting and handling of drop connections. So this is good. This is good. So I like how iRacing is always like working on things to improve their simulation and service. So we have improved reporting and handling of drop connections means that it's supposed to let you come back into the session faster if you do drop connection, because usually what happens is when you're lagging out, you'll be lagging out for like 10, 15, 20 seconds. No one kind of knows where you are, or I believe you might have already been disconnected at that point, but you're still driving. So it's a little frustrating, but if you do happen to come back into the race, it says you should be allowed to reconnect more quickly. That's pretty important. So that's overall a nice change. Cars. Engine oil cooling has been adjusted to increase temperatures at lower engine RPM. Higher engine speeds are not impacted by this change. So this is interesting. So I'm thinking for the oval cars where you have, um, especially at tracks with a lot of braking, like especially short tracks, you'll see this play a factor with how much grill tape you used on the stock cars. Uh, Now it is at lower engine RPM. I'm not sure they didn't specify which ranges, but that is something. I think that is something to slight that might be a consideration at high braking tracks where you don't shift. Of course, some drivers do shift at tracks where you have low cornering speeds, so this then that might not affect anything. But it's something to consider. I think some tracks people might consider lowering their tape a little bit just because of this, but because it's at lower engine RPM, it's not going to make a huge difference at speedways and might not make a difference at short tracks depending on how low the RPM they're talking about. Um, but for qualifying as well, I think is something to consider because you're going up through the gears and the temperatures are going to be a little bit higher as you go up through the gears. I think that's one thing to consider. You probably would still be seeing 100% tape for qualifying runs on the oval cars, but it'll probably be running a little bit hotter earlier on. So that's something that we'll see. All track collisions meshes have been regenerated. I think that's just for walls, curbs, probably bumps as well, I would assume. That's probably good to make things consistent across the entire service for every track with how different objects behave when you collide with them. A variety of visually updated tire stacks and tire wraps have been added throughout iRacing tracks. This rhyme was unintentional. Good. They got bars, man. No. So variety of that's pretty good. This is more of a road course thing, I believe. Tire stacks and tire wraps. Just making them look nicer. So this is all the main simulation changes for cars and tracks. There's also another section down below I'll be getting to later. So race control, new mode of off-track detection system for tire detection. This is something that I think there's a big debate on the forums about, where some tracks where you could literally be four wheels off, half the car, almost half the car literally in the grass or in the dirt on road courses, and you could still be not getting an off track. So track limits being reworked like this, I think this is pretty huge for road course racing, and of course the stock cars do a little bit of road course racing as well, so this is very important. Since it's for tire detection, it looks like you can probably use a little bit more road. So I think lap times are going to increase a little bit at tracks that are really important track limits, which is almost every road course. But looks like it's not everywhere. That's interesting. Right, we're not going to spend too much time on this because, again, I'm not a road course expert. But yeah, dirt racing. Component tires on dirt surfaces should appear to be touching the ground better, particularly for slopes, bumps, and divots. That's a good update for immersion and realism's sake. All versions of stock car tires have been reverted to an earlier version. Now this is pretty interesting for like the stock car discipline. So this includes ARCA, NASCAR, Cup cars, trucks, the next gen, Xfinity, and all the legacy cars, NASCAR cars. So this is I know there have been some complaints about dirt tires not wearing. At least, I don't know what version of the dirt tire had been having that issue, but I was assuming this is probably to somewhat help with that. Also, I noticed that this could have something to do with Bristol dirt and how Bristol dirt on iRacing was very much not anything at all like it was not at all like Bristol dirt in real life, so it might have something to do with that as well. Of course, I think personally that was a lot of surface issues that caused the dissimilarity in that case, but we're gonna move on then. Rallycross racing, higher in launch rev limit in the rallycross cars, prevent gearbox from downshifting lower than 30 km stationary. Good bug fix. AI racing. So we have new AI new AI vehicles, the street stock and the Porsche 911. And then the AI racing now available on some new tracks. All linear. It's nice. Lucas Oil, South Boston, Southern National, Thompson. Those are pretty nice oval tracks for people learning. If you're going to take out the street stock and try to learn against AI, I think that's a really nice thing to do. Just get, because I believe the street stocks don't. Apparently I don't think. Yeah, wait, AI drivers. So adding AI street stocks is really good for drivers trying to just learn how to drive basic stock car, not too hard to handle. I think that's really huge that they're adding AI for it. So that's good on them. Updated racing techniques for the following cars. Updated the Cup cars. I personally have not been practicing Cup cars a lot just because I'm the next gen. And how I don't like the high downforce package personally. Like I don't think anyone I feel very few drivers in iRacing like the high downforce package. But this is nice with upgrading the AI. So I noticed at some tracks it feels like it's a lot easier to beat them than others. So any AI updates is great. No track updates for AI here. This is hilarious. So overall, it looks like these should be performing a lot more better. So I see they should be less aggressive in turn one, better at pit entry and pit exit on pit stalls. So you're probably going to see a more realistic parade lap. I don't know. I don't know what this means. I would assume maybe they just don't collide into each other on pace laps side of car, so they're not gonna door slam you a lot. I personally had experienced this because I was running a truck race at Chicagoland, and they heading into turn one, they would kind of just tank slap each other, heading into turn one as you try to track out before your entrance into turn one. So that's good. Preventing rollovers at low track temperatures. That's an interesting update. Recovering race line, so they'll be better at recovering during the corner. Pit lane entry and exit. Pit lane, not the pit stall. Pit lane, so that's interesting. Track corners to wheel rotation, and we also have AI parameters to prove correlation to user vehicle for the following series for the Cup cars. Okay. So they should drive a little bit more like people. That's good. So race admins. A few custom commands that might be useful for hosted racing and stuff. So you can determine number of pace laps, add end laps to caution length. Caution lap length can't be adjusted until first full caution lap. You can also remove laps from caution length and set end laps to green and next crossing. That's very interesting. I think there's some cool stuff you could probably do with this for hosted racing. To reduce caution lap time. If you probably implement your own like sort of quickie caution system that I know NASCAR has said something they were doing. But for example, some of these like bigger tracks, Talladega, Pocono, Indianapolis to an extent, like you don't want to be riding around for 3-4 caution laps. So if your league has, especially for like a limited tire rule, or you don't think people are going to be pitting that much anyway, you can definitely just remove a bunch of caution laps. It's going to suck for people that are trying to repair damage, but if that's in your league's rule book, then that's in your league's rule book. And then you can use yellow to throw a caution, but also delay restart by 1 lap. Yeah, it's all good stuff. I like it. New damage model. Damage model enabled for Formula V and Street Stock. I saw this Formula V is released. This is not an oval car, but it looks interesting. New damage model. I think they brought the new damage model back for the Street Stock, right? Maybe not recalling correctly, but that's interesting. That's cool to see. I like the way the new damage model looks. As far as performance, I haven't had too much experience with it. I've done some ARCA races, as you may have seen, but they haven't. I haven't had too much experience. I definitely feel like the collisions seem more realistic, and just the damage is definitely more realistic, and I like that. So, see, duration to attach parts when vehicles collidable shorten significantly. That way, you don't like have to guess. So when collisions happen, you have parts coming off, and it looks like you won't be able to actually hit them sooner after they pop off. Tire sidewall properties of some vehicles have been adjusted to differ from tire tread properties. These changes should allow more realistic tire to object and tire to tire contact based on the part of the tires making contact. That's good. Yeah, that makes sense. You don't want to be hitting wheel to wheel and having cars grip as the tire contact happens. So that should definitely be a lot better. Issue where some cars are getting repeatedly reset in the pits. Also, these are tire cars that have the proper adjustments. Three open wheel cars. This Audi RS3, and then the ARCA car. Issue where some cars are getting repeatedly reset in the pits and appear to be bouncing the result. Yeah, you don't want that. That's a good bug fix. Cars used on rallycross tracks have been updated to prevent devastating blows to cars utilizing the new damage model. Yeah. And then original damage model, there's a bug fix for cars scraping against new damage model cars. Yeah. A lot of good bug fixes here. More bug fixes for rendering. See, fixed an issue where specular lights were not rendering brightly enough. Fixed an issue where illumination of the world often flickered in the brightness as the sun moved, especially during sunsets. Yeah, good rendering, bug fixes, make everything, like the lighting look a lot better. And you can't disable smoke via the graphics options. So for people like me that have computers that are a little bit struggling to keep up with graphics to have good effects, this will be a little bit more difficult, but honestly, it makes sense. It's kind of a competitive advantage to turn off smoke, so it makes sense why they have to do it. Tire smoke and dust have received an overhaul, and they adjust based on the moisture levels in the environment. Smoke blending, lingering dusts, dust particle volume increased during dirt racing events, and spark effects have been updated. A lot of visual effects updates that look nice. Water shaders. The average track temperature for generating heat haze has been updated to utilize data from the dynamic track system. That's huge. So if the part of the track is really hot, yeah, you'll see. Yeah, you can actually see the heat haze, assuming you have it turned on. It's interesting. If it's an issue where smoke effects are not being for the player car during long qualifying sessions, yeah, that's. I feel like that's not as impactful during qualifying, but it's still a good bug fix. Road debris sound levels and variations have been improved. Pace car. You can select a different pace car. Nice. Fire effects. And perfect. Pace car driver no longer phases through walls. That's something that used to happen. Looks like it won't be happening as much anymore. That's good. Spotter. New spotter packs. Updated spotter packs. Okay. Cameras. Camera tools mapped to be an analog axis on a joystick. So if you want to control the camera with a joystick, there you go. I feel like League. Definitely like a lot of league and streamers or people broadcasting races, iRacings. Those will be able to pop off a lot more if they use a joystick. The show camera is longer persistent and it will now turn itself off at the next restart of the sim. Cool. Controls, joystick calibrations routines have been updated so that all control types should be able to calibrate. Yeah, I mean, I think everyone should be using a wheel on iRacing, but if you want to use a joystick, go ahead. Some people use gamepads and controllers, so that's. I'm gonna be honest. When I first started, that's what I did before I got my wheel. So that was a while ago, though. I want to check keyboard backlight has been enabled. Support has been added for Razer RGB controller, Chroma Link devices. I think this one is a big one. If you have a Thrustmaster wheel, or for display LCD displays, I feel like the more I get used to racing and get back in the groove of things. At least I've noticed the more you want to have all the extra HUD and peripheral data information. Once you get used to actually driving fast and being able to, you'll get used to looking at other things besides just the track and the cars around you. You want to start looking at what are your lap times compared to this guy. Can you think about what strategies what strategy should I be doing? How good am I on fuel? It gets a lot easier. So always nice to have information like this. It's pretty good for people using this wheel. Telemetry. This is pretty big. Car class estimated lap time indicates estimated lap time for every car in the session. Huge. Car ID fast repairs used and player fast repairs used. If you want to look at telemetry and you're not sure if someone took damage or not, it's probably more useful in hosted races. I guess if you are doing like D class races in oval side like ARCA or late models, and if they do a lot of fast repairs, you can just look at that. But typically, if someone needed to use a fast repair, they're not going to be as competitive. You might not need to worry about them. But it's nice to see, just in case. ABS brake engagement is now logged into telemetry as the Boolean brake ABS active. That's pretty interesting. This doesn't affect oval cars, but I think that's pretty interesting. See all of these cars with ABS, you can just look at telemetry and tell whether ABS is taking over or not. And I feel like it's going to be helpful for a lot of people improving on their braking. I think that's my main weakness as a driver is braking, so that's pretty interesting. But it is only more of a road car upgrade, particularly for these GT and sports cars. New telemetry messages. Oh, similarly, performance meters now displayed via telemetry. So I see like steering wheel percent torque, ping, latency, frame rate. That's nice to have as well during telemetry. So information not only on your car, but like how your computer system is performing. Huge. Telemetry messages, VidCap enabled, VidCap active, blah, blah, blah. That's good. All good. Screenshots. Taking watermark screenshots. Yeah. Backspace key is now acceptable. Substitute. Yeah, cool. Easier to take screenshots. Love all these changes that iRacing is making. This is the main meat of changes actually affecting racing. So excited to get into this. All right, let's start. ARCA cars. For the new damage model, tire sidewall properties have been adjusted to differ from tire tread properties. New damage model, spring damper hyper extension limits have been increased to prevent the car from hopping when in a specific damage state. This was already listed, and then there are also iRacing setups have been updated. So that's good. New setups, always want to see those. I think they don't update all the setups in the garage when you or in the iRacing setups. So sometimes you might be. I think if I'm thinking of it correctly, you might be using season-old setups. Usually it's not. I don't think that's usually a big deal, especially for like a season like this where they don't make too many changes to that car behavior, handling wise. But it's nice to have to update the setups. Let's skip these. These are not oval cars. Late model, Chevrolet Monte Carlo. So this is the late model stock car. Put stopper fling now uses 2 cans instead of 4. iRacing setups have been updated. From what I understand, you shouldn't be refueling using when driving the late model unless you're in a hosted race, and then setups have been updated. That's good. I know back in the day, late models are important. iRacing late model tour is important for learning how to set up your car and just get basic like track bar, wedge, tire pressure, spring rate. Learn all those basically in the late model stock car. I know that they have a fixed series for the late models now, but yeah, some comments on the late model. Um, I'll look at these dirt adjustments, but again, I'm not a dirt driver, so tire compound, tread pattern updated, vehicle weight distribution, setups updated, dirt modified. Point vehicle properties have been adjusted for an improved correlation to real car. You want to actually see where they actually are and not floating above the track. Sprint car setups have been updated. Chassis changes reverted, and then again, same as other modified change. Scroll down. It's an oval car, Indy Pro. Basically the same changes though. I guess this technically could be an oval car, right? It's some shorter ovals, but yeah, same changes as listed before. Suspension damage limits to increase to prevent breakage while using oval setups. Oh, I see. So I guess the loads at some oval tracks would do some damage to the cars. So that's interesting, just because the new damage model. I'm assuming instead of just having explicit damage numbers for using the new damage model, they actually take more of a structural mechanics approach, or I guess as I learned it was mechanics and materials approach. And of course, regular stresses for cars, especially like probably lower budget cars than like what usually run on ovals. They'll take some more damage as they go through higher load corners, and eventually they probably do take some damage and break. And I'm assuming that this changes based on the setups used. So that's interesting. And then tire sidewall property changes, as we mentioned earlier. Let's move on. SK modifieds. Let's go. Okay, fueling procedure has been updated to be more accurate to the real world. Again, I think this is mostly a hosted race update. If you're doing an SK modified league that does require you to pit, I believe they shouldn't require you to pit in the official races. Backfire update effects have been updated. That looks nice. iRacing setups have been updated. Good. All right, NASCAR Monte Carlo 87 Legends car. I mean, not Legends car, the NASCAR Legends Chevy. So we have the engine braking adjustment. It doesn't tell us exactly what. Maybe I could find that at some point. But for those don't know, engine braking. It's just I believe it's when you're off the throttle, the engine has the effect of slowing the car down when you're off the throttle. So that's what they're adjusting. They're not telling us exactly how it's adjusted, which I guess, but brake parameters have also been adjusted. Aerodynamic properties based on damage states have been adjusted. That is huge. So when you're taking damage, it's going to affect your aero. I'm interested to see how these aerodynamic properties change based on damage. I know a lot of times on iRacing, you get damage on your front end and you're toast. Which is pretty realistic, I would assume. But drafting parameters updated, stacker parameters updated, vehicle setup adjustment ranges have been adjusted. So if you're doing open setups, I believe the NASCAR Legends series is fixed, but if you're doing a hosted series or you just want to make some setups, you get more range to do that. Or maybe less range, I don't know. This is an issue where force feedback shakes at low speeds, and then iRacing setups have been updated. Cool. All right, NASCAR Cup Series Chevrolet Camaro Z01. This is the current Gen 6 that they're using. Tire properties have been updated for when this car is running at track with a dirt surface, as mentioned earlier. Engine braking adjusted, and aerodynamics and tracking properties have been updated. Same thing. We should see the same thing throughout all of these Cup Series cars. Let's move on to the Ford Thunderbird. Should be the same thing as the Chevy Monte Carlo. Trucks are only getting setup updates, nothing else. So we'll move on to that. NASCAR Next Gen Chevrolet Camaro ZL1 is engine, so it has engine braking adjustments. This looks pretty similar to, oh wait, tire parameters updated, drafting parameters updated, fuel amount and tow adjustment and compliance have been updated, and improved audio and setup changes. Hopefully this tire parameters updated has something to do with making the cars not full throttle at mile and a half. I know a lot of people were not happy with that, but it also could be realistic. So you might just need to leave that alone and hope for the best. But yeah, tire parameters hopefully makes for some better racing at mile and a half and intermediates. Should see the same thing in about every car in the next gen. So yeah, Xfinity cars. Adjust the garage arrangement for right rear coil bind and range has been increased. I think this is a pretty big deal. I know not every setup or not every driver likes using right rear coil bind, but to adjust the garage arrangement for it, and I think that should help people out a little bit. I mean, I think that's range increase always provides more freedom, lets more the more skillful. I believe it lets more skillful setup makers show off a little bit, so that's good. Same thing across all the Xfinity cars. Silver Crown iRacing setups updated. Sprint car iRacing setups updated. Street stock new damage model iRacing setups updated. Super late model pit stop refueling uses 2 cans instead of 4. This might be a little bit more important. I know super late model races tend to be a little bit longer. I think usually you would still put the amount of fuel you need to get to the end, just because of the way the tires work. You don't really want to make pit stops for tires, I believe, on the Hoosier tires. So steering wheel stitching textures and occlusion maps have been updated. Inconsistency with the appearance of the front left front wheel on the opponent vehicles. Okay, that's good. More clarity. More visual clarity is important, especially in racing. On these appearance of left wheel, I think that's really good change, and I'm glad they're updating it, just because when you're having a wheel-to-wheel battle, you want to know exactly where this person is. You want to know exactly how they're running, where they're running, and how you might want to adjust your line based on what they're doing. And then, especially if you're running side by side with them, or just trying to copy their laps, or move away from what line they're running. And yeah, that's all the car updates. Let's move on to the tracks, and then we'll wrap this up. Bristol Motor Speedway, the dirt camera setup's been updated. I'll cover this Chicago Street Circuit. This came out, I believe, the night or maybe the day after or the day before the iRacing Pro Invitational. Yeah, I think it's a cool idea, Street Circuit. Hopefully, if NASCAR does go to that Street Circuit in real life, they have a very similar configuration, so that iRacing doesn't have the iRacing curse where they just have something that's not really correct, or it gets adjusted in the moment after they scan it from the roll. So, visibility of turn 10 exit outer wall has been improved. Visibility improved. Brake markers updated. Tire stacks updated. Track seems stitched up and cameras updated. Let's move on. Las Vegas. Track surface properties have been adjusted slightly. Now, this is code for something. This is code for the surface parameters. What they did was they give more grip to the outer lanes, or the lanes that haven't been used traditionally as much, which is realistic because of the way tracks get shaved off. This is what brought a lot of multi-groove racing back to a lot of the mile and a halves on iRacing, and I think it's a good thing they're continuing to make these adjustments. Las Vegas should be a really fun track to race at again. Track surface properties have been adjusted slightly for Martinsville. Should be the same thing. It's not going to have, I don't think, as much impact at Martinsville, but maybe it will. I don't know. Also, the thing to consider, it might be a little bit different for concrete versus asphalt, but I believe it's probably going to be more likely that a second groove can emerge during a Martinsville race, and that is pretty huge, because not only is that more realistic, but gives drivers more options to hold people off or try to get around people. Makes things harder to pass, and that makes it more fun. Nashville Superspeedway, new track. So yeah, the NASCAR Cup Series in real life is going here. So they added the track, scanned it, got it ready. Should be fun. I need to pick that up. Pocono track service parameters have been adjusted. This should be the same thing, I believe. I'm interested why they said parameters, not properties here, but I assume it's just the same thing. As they go outside, you get a little more grip. Now, I believe Pocono is a track that traditionally uses PJ1 anyway, so I don't know if we'll actually see multiple groups develop at Pocono during a race. But it's nice that they make the adjustment anyway, just to be more realistic. I think all the oval tracks, or all tracks in general, should have that adjustment. Realistically, at least the oval ones, just because of the frequency of which the cars drive on the tracks, should have more of an effect on smoothing out the racing surface. Road America, cover this one. Also in Red Bull running new track, F1, and other series, of course, run there. But yeah, Road America, gain time checkpoints have been adjusted near the entry of turn 5 to prevent taking an extremely wide entry for an advantage. So turn 5, I'm thinking. So it's 1, 2, 3. I'm not sure if it's the heavy downhill braking, but this is pretty important. We're coming up on Road America, I believe, this season for the NASCAR cars, so that's a pretty important change for preventing track extending. And then Silverstone, and then we go to the legacy tracks. And this is the rallycross change, so you're not going to worry about that. And yeah, that's it. Okay, so thanks for watching. Yeah, I don't think this is a huge patch in particular, but it's nice to see. I'm glad to see some more track surface parameter adjustments for Las Vegas, Martinsville, and Pocono. New track Nashville. I'd assume it also have the parameter adjustments as well, since it's just straight up a new track. Nashville should be a fun track to race at. Coming up pretty soon. I believe it's next week. Actually, it'll be probably the first race of the season 3 for iRacing this year, so that'll be fun. Adjustments to the ARCA car. The engine braking is going to be interesting. I think engine braking is going to be huge because it's going to affect how much you can coast heading into corners, especially on the longer corners where you don't want to really use trail braking, and drivers that are better with coasting to get their cars slowed down and drift into the corner. I think it's going to make people like that. It's going to adjust how people like that drive. I know I personally like to do that. I'm not really much of a trail breaker myself, so it's going to be interesting to see. Yeah, that's about all the major changes I can think of to recap. Thank you for watching. Hope you had fun. Thanks to iRacing for releasing these patch notes ahead of time. I believe Alex Gustafson posted this on the forums. Yeah. And thanks for watching. Maybe I'll see you on the track. This is Chris. Please subscribe and like for more.